So today we have a panel of speakers to help us navigate through these nuances and what all of this means. Our first panelist today is Mark Gerling. Mark is the Operations Director at Vantage Power. Mark and Vantage Power are based out of the United Kingdom, and they specialize in the design and manufacturing of powertrain electrification and connectivity technologies for heavy-duty vehicles. Now, I know that is a mouthful. I even have a hard time trying to get it out of my mouth, but in a few minutes, I'll let Mark explain that in a little bit more detail. Our next speaker is Paula Yarwood with Infor Logic. Infor Logic is a gold channel partner within the Infor Partner Network, and both Paula and Infor Logic are key partners in the United Kingdom for both Infor as well as Vantage Power. Now, our last speaker is Nick Castellino with Infor. Nick leads the industry strategy for Infor, covering all discrete manufacturing industries, such as industrial machinery equipment, high-tech electronics, automotive, aerospace and defense, and more. Now, Nick, really looking forward to hearing your insights on the trends in the industry around this digital transformation. So with that, let's get started. So, Mark, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Vantage Power?
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to. My name is Mark Gerling. I'm the Operations Director at VP, and I've been at VP for about 4 years. Vantage Power is a young, innovative engineering company. We're based in London, in the UK, and our mission is to develop and sell technologies that connect and radically reduce emissions from heavy-duty vehicles around the world. So we design, we integrate, we manufacture, and we install entire hybrid and electric drive lines for heavy-duty vehicles. We can also provide major components off the shelf or customized to specific applications.
Excellent. Now, I heard a little bit about the story about how your company started, and it got started after like a long car drive, which I found like an interesting story. Could you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So straight from university, our two founders basically started a journey that would see them creating Vantage Power. They both shared a passion for electric vehicles. So back in 2010, after completing their degrees, they wanted to share their enthusiasm for this technology with as many people as they could. They thought the best way of doing this was to basically design and build an electric car and drive it along the longest road in the world, which happened to be the Pan American Highway. So they started in Alaska, and 26,000 kilometers later, they finished on the southern tip of Argentina, stopping along the way, obviously, to charge the battery and sleep and eat and things like that. But they completed the journey. They generated an awful lot of interest, and they wanted to use everything they'd learned in this process to start a company. So after analysing the market and looking at the technology, they identified an opportunity. In London and in many, many cities around the world, there is emissions legislation coming into force. The legislation would see buses and other heavy-duty vehicles with an awful lot of their useful operational life remaining being removed from city streets due to non-compliance with emissions regulations. So buying a new fleet is very expensive for an operator, so the idea was born to retrofit buses, removing the non-compliant diesel driveline and replacing it with a more fuel-efficient, lower emissions driveline, specifically a hybrid driveline. The fuel savings would basically cover the cost of the conversion, and the vehicles would be allowed to continue operating in service. And off the back of this idea, Vantage Power was formed.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it must be a long journey trying to go down that entire highway. Now, you mentioned there a little bit about different rules and regulations. Now, I know I spent several years living in the United Kingdom, and I know that your regulations there are a bit different than they are here in the United States. So how did the regulations help start some of your innovations?
Regulations definitely did help put some sort of momentum behind our innovations, but we also knew that we were doing something quite different, something quite novel. The concept of the driveline retrofit was not well established within our target markets, and Vantage Power is largely responsible for taking that idea and obtaining its acceptance, effectively creating a market for retrofitted hybrid and electric vehicles, a market that's quite well established at this point. looking at the tech, we design and manufacture from scratch our own lithium-ion batteries to power these hybrid buses. And this is a purpose-built unit specific to the application. It's liquid-cooled and it's very energy-dense. The whole pack, the whole driveline has been designed with an eye on data, being able to create useful data and making it available to our engineers. The team knew from the start that we can introduce new concepts and generate value in new ways by using this data effectively. So that data, we might use it for our own internal product development. We might use it to demonstrate compliance to legislation. We can reduce time to market of our products and manage the risk of our fielded equipment a lot better by using this data. But more than anything, we can use it to innovate new technologies that are beneficial to our customers. And the idea of using data and cloud technology in this way on a driveline is quite different from what I've seen elsewhere in the industry. So a lot of what we do is new. A lot of what we do is definitely challenging an established market. And without doubt, regulations have helped to drive and put some momentum behind getting these new technologies out there.
Yeah, it sounds like you're definitely going through a digital transformation in that particular kind of industry. But if I go back to the mouthful where I tried to explain exactly what it is that you guys do, so could you explain, I guess, in a little bit more detail about what it is to retrofit a bus?
So looking at the hybrid retrofit, we take a double-decker bus. It would be a few years old. We'd lift the whole thing up and we'd clear out the engine bay. So we take out the big old dirty diesel engine and gearbox and all the ancillary systems that are in there, and we start fitting our own system in the space that's left. So our own system would include a battery pack, a range extender, an electric motor, a lot of the high voltage components that move the energy around between these different systems. It would include all the cooling systems, and it would include a touchscreen for the driver to basically interact with the driveline. And once this has been installed and once it's been commissioned, we've effectively created a series hybrid driveline in what was a typical diesel engine bus. And our retrofitted buses, they have been out on trial in London. They can do lots of things. They can recover energy to the battery when the bus brakes, for example. The engine will start-stop instead of just running continuously. And in London, we saw over 50% engine off time. And the vehicle can enter an electric-only mode of operation, so driving around without producing any emissions at all. And this is incredibly useful for ultra-low emission zones, going past schools and going past hospitals and things like that. And in the trial in London, we saved between 30 to 50% fuel savings versus a typical unmodified vehicle. So bringing this up to today, we've basically taken the know-how and the technology that we've learned from this big project and other big projects to expand our product portfolio. And what we can offer today is the hybrid retrofit, but also we're looking increasingly at full electric retrofit solutions, which requires much of the same expertise, just with a much larger battery. And we also offer some of the technologies as standalone products and services. So that includes selling battery systems, vehicle controllers, hybrid and electric vehicle controllers, range extenders, complete drive systems, and we also offer our vehicle telemetry system, which is called VP Vision.
Interesting. Those are some impressive statistics. Taking a look at having a 50% engine off time and a 30 to 50% fuel reduction with the hybrid. It'll be interesting to see if you go, or once you go full electric, what some of those statistics improve to. So it definitely sounds like you guys are definitely disrupting and changing the overall bus industry. So Nick, we are also seeing this type of disruption happening across other manufacturing industries. Can you describe a little bit about, I guess, the overall industry landscape and issues that just general manufacturers are facing today?
Sure, and as you said, we are seeing a lot of similar challenges to what Vantage Power is facing across all of our discrete manufacturing industries. And you can kind of see 5 key challenges on this slide that our customers are really reporting to us and we're seeing out in the market. Number one, And it's really a challenge that has existed for all of time for manufacturers. It's operational complexity. How are they running their business when it comes to how are they handling regulatory, quality, environment, safety concerns? How are they managing these effectively across their business? How are they managing operating across multiple sites where they're having to plan for the supply chain effectively and really consolidate all of their information so they can get full visibility across their business? How are they focusing more on customer service, and how is that more of a significant portion of the bottom line? How is their business model changing from ways that it has in the past, requiring them to ultimately decide how they're going to support these processes? And then lastly, how are these organizations taking advantage of emerging technology like the Internet of Things, like analytics, like the cloud, and how is that changing the way their business operates? Another set of challenges that you see across the industrial manufacturing are competitive demands. How are they handling the ways in which they interact with their customers? Are they enabling customers to interact with them online? Are they making it easy for customers to get quotes and deliver more significantly configured products? And how are they handling delivering new services or maybe methods of bill by consumption or subscription models? So ways in which these organizations need to identify what their customer needs are and figure out how they're going to address them. You also see the challenges related to high costs. Again, this is a challenge that has existed for all of time of manufacturers, but it comes down to things like rising material prices, inefficiency across operations, spending too much money to support your operations with either too many employees, too many assets, spending too much on initiatives that don't make sense for improving the operations of the organization. These organizations need to figure out how to identify ways to reduce costs while delivering the same level of value across their organization. And then also there's the high cost related to IT. Having too many IT support individuals supporting the business rather than focusing on the organization's core competency, not having adequate IT resources to really support the solutions that are going to drive the business going forward. You see the challenges related to supply chain execution when it comes to managing demand. So much of your supply chain data, some say 80%, exists outside of your four walls. Well, if you don't have access to that data, how are you going to be able to plan and forecast for demand, causing your organization to maybe carry too much inventory or not enough inventory, causing you to miss out on potential revenue or incur significant inventory holding costs? And then lastly, there's the skills gap in manufacturing, where a lot of manufacturers are finding it difficult to attract and retain talent in a very competitive job market. What we're seeing is a lot of manufacturers are focusing on technology as a means of getting people to actually want to work within their organizations. The new generation of workers don't really want to utilize green screens or don't want to utilize software that doesn't mock the way they utilize software in their day-to-day lives. So there are these concerns on how are these organizations going to take advantage of technology.
Sounds like a lot of different challenges. I know the skills gap one, I mean, I've heard here in the States for quite some time about the retiring workforce. I know in manufacturing there are thousands, if not millions, of current job openings today that are just going unfilled just because of that particular, skills gap that we see. So what are companies doing to meet these challenges in manufacturing?
Sure. You really see 5 key things here that match up very well with what we talked about on the last slide. It's really focusing on things like product personalization, delivering more custom and unique products to fit the exact needs of the individual. Of course, this requires the organization to be able to actually support those products and deliver those products and meet their promises. Differentiating on service. So a lot of manufacturers are kind of flipping their business models to really make a more significant portion of their bottom line come from servicing the products that they're delivering to their customers, again, requiring a whole new set of skill sets. Smart equipment, when it comes to both the equipment you're utilizing within your organization, the assets you're using to build your products, as well as the products that you're delivering to customers. When you are maybe delivering products with embedded software, where you can draw more data for R&D and also draw more data for being able to service those assets effectively. So having access to this data is making manufacturers be able to change the ways that they're optimizing maintenance and service for their customers and within their organization. Competing through collaboration, which means involving your customers in every step of the design process to make sure that you're meeting their specific needs and you're communicating with them effectively. And then lastly, maximizing human potential. So providing these employees, that new generation of workers that Mark and I just talked about, with technology that's going to allow them to become more effective and also give them technology that they're happy to work with. So things like artificial intelligence, being able to recommend suggested actions to customers through things like digital assistants, mobile technology allowing these employees to find all the information they need no matter where they are, cloud, providing more available data to these employees. It's really all about relying on software to not replace employees, but to make them more effective.
I've definitely heard a lot more, about, cloud and mobile and artificial intelligence being part of this, digital transformation and digital disruption. And I know there's a lot of it, comes across as part of the Internet of Things or the Industrial Internet of Things, or people call it Industry 4.0. There's so many different names for it. But can you sort of expand on what are some of the different, elements that we see around, say, IoT or this Industry 4.0 nomenclature?
Sure. And, Industry 4.0 is a term that I'm sure many people on the call today have heard, but what that really means is how technology is supporting changing business models within this new industrial revolution. We've had 3 prior to this. Industry 4.0 is really focusing on automation and smart factories and collaboration, communication, and connectivity for manufacturers to operate in new ways than they ever had before. And here's really the elements of Industry 4.0. One is digitization. So that just means things like providing a digital twin of the processes that you're completing within your organization so that you have one single record of how your organization is operating. Digitizing your products and your services, delivering those new services and experiences to both your customers and your employees than you've ever really been able to in the past. So it's relying on software to really reflect what's going on in your organization. Then you have the cloud as a delivery platform for your software, making that software more available across wider geographic distance, and also ensuring that your company is always up to date on the latest technology, being able to connect that technology to other sources and being able to share that technology effectively. So really it's completely enabled manufacturers of all types to interact with software more effectively and utilize that software more effectively across their organizations. Then you have data science, which is things like analytics, machine learning, and AI, utilizing the data that's already contained within your business systems, but applying intelligence to that data to make it more consumable, make it more usable for your end users, and also ultimately allowing machine learning and artificial intelligence to help to provide recommendations, maybe automate processes down the line based on the ways that people are utilizing data across your organization. So it's all about maximizing the value of that data. You see the API economy, allowing organizations to no longer have very siloed business systems, instead making it very easily to share data across business systems, getting it in and out of those business systems so that you can take a more holistic view of your entire organization and make better decisions in real time. Then you have networks when it comes to being able to share data outside of your organization. I mentioned how manufacturers see that 80% of their data exists outside of their 4 walls, their supply chain data. Being able to belong to business networks to share that data with suppliers, with regulators, with customers is going to allow these organizations to become more effective at managing demand, communicating outwardly, and ultimately relying on better profitability. And then lastly, the instrumented world. And we're talking about the Internet of Things here, and I mentioned that on the last slide when it relates to drawing data off of your assets so that you can do things like optimize maintenance, improve R&D, really make more decisions, and that'll help you to reduce costs.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, that's some really key insights on all those different elements of Industry 4.0, and I can sort of imagine that to really go down the path of this digital transformation that you really need to have a core digital backbone or ERP solution to help you go down this transformation. So I'm sort of going to flip it back to Mark now, and because I understand that you guys recently went through the process and chose a ERP solution. So when did you guys realize that you needed a new ERP system to help you manage your operations and help Vantage Power grow?
So our plan was always to sell internationally. The market for the technology that we make is global, and the opportunity for our technology is in the tens and hundreds of thousands. However, we didn't want to create a large manufacturing and distribution facility, especially where we are on the outskirts of London. There are other organisations already set up to do this kind of manufacturing that we're after. There were some elements that we would want to build ourselves, such as the battery and some of the more complex electronics that might stay in-house. But to start with, at least, we needed to focus on managing our suppliers, managing the stock. And as you can imagine, the supply base and the number of components required for an entire hybrid driveline is pretty vast. There are an awful lot of parts. We also had to consider our customers. We would be taking vehicles that are in operation, out of operation, in order to perform the work on them that we needed to perform. So it's very possible that customers would add complexity to our production process by requesting that we do the installations in different locations around the country, or possibly even around the world, and in different ways, so not to impact their operation. So what I'm trying to get at is that there's a lot of complexity in the way that we were going to operate. And we wanted an ERP system that would grow with us effectively, so allowing us to select and utilise the modules that we needed. Initially, to start with, we had a focus on finance, sales and supply chain, with a view to grow into manufacturing and the projects kind of areas a bit later on. And we required a system that would offer us the flexibility and would mature and evolve with us and with our operating model, and allow us to be responsive to our customers. So we believe that the accessibility of a cloud-based system specifically would help smooth this journey for us, especially with different sites, satellite sites dotted around. Given the size of our organisation at the time when we started this, we were quite small. We couldn't afford to develop and train lots of internal domain experts in different areas of a vast ERP system. We needed a system that was very intuitive, and a provider that could deliver good high-quality service quickly when we needed it. And we realised that we needed this type of ERP system to support our first major project, which was the hybrid retrofit vehicles for London, and that was about 3 years ago.
Excellent. So when you go down the path of selecting an ERP system, so actually, Paul, I'm going to bring you into the conversation now, because I know that you worked closely with Vantage Power, I guess, while they went through the selection process for their ERP, and helped them work with them on their initial implementation and continue to support them today. But can you tell us a little bit about how the ERP selection process works and what companies should be looking for in an ERP to help them go down this digital transformation?
Yeah, of course I can. We all know that choosing an ERP solution isn't an easy process to go through. So doing some internal assessment, first of all, look at your businesses and your processes and find those inefficiencies that you're looking for an ERP to improve, or develop processes for you like Vantage Power, because they're in infancy. And what you can also do is look at your differentiators. What makes you unique? What's your competitive edge? Use these to kind of assess the ERPs and how they can help you, give you improvements that you need, and achieve your goals both short-term and long-term. So whether that's become more efficient, or whether that's aggressive growth plans such as Vantage Power have. And what you're looking for then is an ERP solution that understands your market, that can help you guide to best practices within your industry.
All right. Yeah, appreciate that. So Nick, if you look at these issues and requirements, are those pretty typical for all manufacturing companies? And since you're with Infor, could you tell us a little bit about Infor Strategy and how they help companies take a look at these different requirements as an ERP and sort of provide a solution for them?
Sure, and you see Infor Strategy on the left side of this slide, and it really aligns very much with what we've been talking about today and kind of the key elements of Industry 4.0 that I talked about earlier. So really you read that left side diagram from the bottom to the top and really see how it all builds on top of each other to support all the needs of a growing manufacturer today. And it really all starts with the platform, that digital backbone that Mark referenced. And that's Infor OS, our Infor Operating Service, which is really our platform that supports extensibility, usability, IoT, analytics, integration, all of the key things that are important for enabling digital transformation in manufacturing in the modern environment. And then reading the rest of that diagram from the bottom to the top, we really start by focusing on industry. Infor really focuses on the best practices and last mile features that are important for manufacturers of all types. So we are building in specific business processes and functionality for industrial machinery and equipment, for example, for automotive, for example, for aerospace and defense, and really a variety of other manufacturing types to make sure that we're enabling our businesses to implement our software without having to heavily customize that software and to really just rely on our expertise to support their core competencies as they want to grow and change. And then since we're doing that, we can deliver those applications in the cloud. Again, enabling organizations and businesses to adopt this software without heavy customization to make sure that they can always stay up to date and they aren't held back by those customizations, ensuring that they can share that data effectively, access that data effectively, as well as always be on the latest version so they can take advantage of emerging technologies like the things I talked about on that Industry 4.0 slide. You can see on the right some of the specific applications in Industry Cloud Suites, which are ERP supported by those strategic applications to really deliver a suite that supports a manufacturer from end to end, depending on what their industry may be.
Yeah,
and since we've got that data, in the cloud, we're able to ensure that organizations are able to take advantage of their networks. They're able to rely on those supplier networks that we talked about earlier, but also the internal networks when it comes to what type of information is being drawn off of their machines when it comes to IoT. And since we have all of this data in the cloud, we can apply analytics and AI to maximize the value contained within those data sets to make better decisions, to make that data more consumable, to make recommendations, and enable organizations to ultimately someday automate some of their business processes.
Yeah, so looking at the Industry Cloud Suite slide, I mean, it looks like you've got e-commerce and supply chain and finance, and going back to something that Mark was talking about earlier, how they started with finance and they were going to grow and move into manufacturing. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of different types of strategies or transformations or projects people can work on. So what are some of the different areas that people look at when they start thinking of going down the path of doing a digital transformation?
Sure, and I mean, these technologies that we talked about on that last slide are really the core puzzle pieces that manufacturers today are utilizing to support their digital transformation journey. And what you see here is just a series of examples. The digital transformation that your business decides to embark on doesn't have to be exactly the same as this, but this is just some things for you to start thinking about as you want to embark on your digital transformation journey. And we see that manufacturers are really focusing on 4 key things: their operations and their assets, their people, their customers, and their networks. Really the main things that they should be focusing on as they look to improve their business through software and through digital. So we'll just give you a few examples. When we talk about your people and how this matches to the challenges that I talked about a few slides ago, when it comes to doing things like enabling mobile access to information for maybe service technicians out in the field or salespeople out in the field or executives out in the field as they look to rely on organizational data for them making decisions. You see your customers, what type of digital transformation initiatives can you take on when you want to support maybe the quote-to-order process, enabling them to order products from you online rather than having to order over the phone or through email, or have significant back and forth as they look to customize these products. Being able to very easily interact with your organization by just going into a customer portal and purchasing something and understanding what it's going to cost and when you're going to get it and what it's going to look like. Operations and assets, when it comes to utilizing things like warehouse mobility or shop floor control, utilizing connectivity to draw information from your business processes as they're being completed so that you can perform more efficiently and also make better decisions based off of that data. And then lastly, the network, when it comes to, for example, communicating with suppliers through supplier portals or supplier networks to really make better decisions around supply chain data. So really, I think of this as a worksheet for organizations like you to start thinking about ways in which you can improve your organization in the modern manufacturing environment, and then start linking those improvements to the technologies that we saw on the last slide.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's a good worksheet or a good roadmap, or it's definitely a good listing of ideas that people can go down to, or things to consider for digital transformation. But I really want to go back to you, Mark, because I think at the core of all this is that, you do have to have a core solution as your foundation to be able to build on some of these different ideas. Now, I know we talked earlier that, you worked with Infor Logic to select an ERP, and in this case, you selected Infor CloudSuite Industrial SyteLine, which is a cloud-based ERP. So could you tell us a little bit about why you chose the cloud solution and why you chose to partner with both Infor and Infor Logic on this particular task?
Certainly. Well, because it's cloud-based, for a start, we saw that the investment in the back-end infrastructure and maintenance is greatly reduced. We saw it as a much easier implementation. The upfront costs of some of the sort of competitive non-cloud-based systems can be quite prohibitive. The time and effort to stand up non-cloud-based systems as well and integrate them with the business can be quite a lot larger. A cloud system supports our vision of off-site manufacturing and installation across multiple different facilities worldwide. We saw that it would provide us with the flexibility that we desire, and the ability to sort of change with us as we grow and as we scale. And as an organisation, we firmly believe in the opportunity presented by cloud technology, which is why we've based one of our own products in the cloud. Our vehicle telemetry system is 100% cloud-based, and it generates data directly from the driveline. But we thought, what use is that kind of data if we can't relate it back to build standards or configuration changes or software versions and so on? And it's that kind of information that's generally stored in manufacturing records that's normally kept within an ERP system. I think that's what Nick was getting at on the previous slide. So by having both services cloud-based, it provides a fantastic opportunity to interface and to share data and to really enhance our product offering. So with this in mind, we went out to market to look for a solution that would work for us. And after reviewing plenty of options, the Infor system came out top, offering the best combination of cost and capability. But when viewed in conjunction with the service and support that's offered by Infor Logic, both can be absolutely laser focused on what our business needs, really tailored to us and to our use case, and that's what sold it ultimately.
Right. Yeah, so speaking of, Infor Logic, and working with a partner and tailoring it to your specific needs. So, Paul, I'm going to have you come back in for a second to sort of, tell us a little bit more about, how you envision or how Vantage Power is currently using CloudSuite Industrial and some of the results they've had to date.
Yeah, so Vantage Power are taking the full advantage of the end-to-end functionality of the Cloud Suite, from customer orders and manufacturing to the financials. So we're bringing in a lot of external disparate spreadsheets and processes into one solution. And by having one version of the truth, what they've been able to do is gain full visibility across from stock and visibility, etc., to be able to make quick business decisions. And as the solution is not modular based, what they're able to do is easily grow into the functionality over time as their business processes are going to start to demand it. So today they're able to manage their supply chain, control stock, and easily build builds of manufacture, whilst knowing they'll be able to utilise the solution's planning capabilities to retain efficient manufacturing processes and as demand grows, and also capture costs and control resources through projects in a later phase.
Excellent. Yes, when you talk about later phases, I know I got to go back to you a little bit, Mark, and talk more about your, future of, Vantage Power and where you envision taking the solution and what you plan to do with both the SyteLine solution, as well as, I guess you touched on your, telemetry system, VP Vision. So if you want to sort of expand on where you see Vantage Power going in the future with these, new digital solutions.
Of course. Well, it's an incredibly exciting time for us at the moment at VP. Our driveline is currently fitted to one of London's largest ever triple axle buses, which is driving around. It's an absolutely vast hybrid triple axle, and we're looking at various retrofitted heavy-duty vehicles with an increasing focus on full electric retrofits. And our product portfolio is attracting an awful lot of interest. But as you mentioned, VP Vision specifically, which is the vehicle telemetry system, we've got this under trial on a number of applications around the world. So we're looking at buses, but we're also looking at utility trucks. We're looking at marine applications. It's not constrained to a particular vehicle type. And VP Vision is being sold as its standalone product. So we hope to take the benefits that we've achieved on our own drivelines to the wider market. And in terms of future integration with CloudSuite, for example, Nick's been mentioning things like AI and analytics and things like that. We've managed to apply some of that new technology to our batteries, to our lithium-ion batteries. So there's a particular problem with lithium-ion batteries where they can start to fail effectively. It's a problem referred to as excessive cell discharge. One cell in a battery, and bearing in mind that a battery might have thousands of these things, can start to fail in a very, very minute way, and it can affect the performance of the entire battery pack and affect the performance of the entire vehicle. So using cloud-based tech, we've managed to create an algorithm that can detect this fault months earlier than current standards can allow. And this gives us the ability to be proactive and start resolving some of these issues in service before they start causing problems. But imagine that you've got thousands of batteries out there in service across thousands of vehicles. You could start using this capability, this automatic capability, to start driving your production demand. So if it were to interface with CloudSuite, we could use feedback direct from the battery to specify the type and the characteristics of the replacement parts that we need to produce. Whereas today, battery parts in particular, nobody wants to just keep them stocked and on a shelf because they deteriorate over time. So it can take weeks or months to get spare battery parts. But with these kind of capabilities, cloud-based and connected, there's a lot of opportunity to improve the way that definitely electric and hybrid vehicles are serviced and supported. So yeah, it's a busy time for us at VP at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds, real exciting. That's definitely where we see the industry going with that kind of, predictive maintenance. So as you have more sensors on some of those engines in conjunction with your telemetry system and start getting some of that data and then taking a look at the analytics, so you would be able to provide better predictive maintenance and service on the engines and manage those parts and inventory in a more economical fashion, as well as for the customers, just a more, customer-friendly fashion. So definitely sounds like you guys are, disrupting both the bus industry as well as your internal IT systems to really go down this path. So let's sort of go ahead and just wrap this up a bit for today. And I'll go back to you, Nick, and just sort of say, so what advice would you give companies to really help them start down their own journey of, taking a look at some of these digital options and the digital transformation?
Sure, and it can be very confusing and very overwhelming to start thinking about digital as an organization and really understanding where to start. I think one thing that I would definitely recommend is not to do digital just for digital's sake, right? If you don't have a real business case for how you want to support or maybe change your business, it doesn't make sense to be embarking on an initiative. But I think it really all starts with strategizing. So focusing on what your company mission is and define the vision for digital transformation. Do you want to become more customer-centric? So are you going to focus on something for managing the customer or communicating with the customers? Are you really focused on reducing costs and improving efficiency within your manufacturing operations? But what pieces of technology are really going to fit into that digital strategy before you can start really understanding what the initiative may be? From there, you go into designing, and this is really just this slide here, pretty straightforward and pretty logical plan for how you get this done. Designing your components, working with a cross-functional team of IT and the line of business, as well as your software vendor and any other business partners that you may have, to define what the components are and to create a project plan. Before you're moving on to assembling all of this data together and all of these business applications together into one cohesive initiative. And then ultimately you run that and you measure it to make sure that you're achieving the results that you actually defined, where you can therefore maintain and really tweak your solutions to make sure that you're getting that full value. So starts with strategy, moving into designing the actual transformation, assembling it, and then ultimately running and taking advantage of it.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like some really good advice. I like don't do digital for digital's sake, but you really just need to, have a plan on, what it is you want to try to accomplish. So, Paula, what about you? Do you have any final comments on what you're seeing in the market today?
Yeah, I've seen a massive shift, especially in the past 5 years. Manufacturing companies have been very skeptical about going to the cloud and whether you can actually have an end-to-end ERP functioning as you want it to for a manufacturing business. But there's a lot more open-mindedness about this. Vantage Power kind of led the way in that 5 years ago about what the cloud can offer. So such things, as being, the pulse of the latest and greatest functionality and not having to wait a number of years to actually upgrade your solution. Manufacturing companies are now appreciating by going to the cloud that they're actually future-proofing their ERP solution. That they've got quick and easy access to leading-edge technology, some of which we've mentioned today, and it ensures that they're staying customer-focused and they stay proactive rather than reactive to the customer's needs.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like, you've helped Mark and the folks at Vantage Power, go down the path of, future-proofing through going into the cloud and being, customer-focused. So with that, Mark, I'm going to, give you the last word. So what kind of parting advice would you give manufacturers about adopting and embracing some of this new technology and new innovations?
So our customers primarily are based in the heavy-duty vehicle sector, and we've had some really, really interesting insights working with them as they go to adopt our VP Vision telemetry system. And when it comes to this kind of tech, it's really important to have someone within the organisation that understands the vision and understands the benefits of what you're trying to achieve, which is often a lot easier said than done. A lot of the organisations that we're dealing with don't necessarily have experts in cloud technology or AI or the other areas that we're talking about. The vision and the benefits need to stack up. It's important that value can be associated with all of this. And for some of the benefits, this is quite easy to achieve, but there's an awful lot of potential, specifically in some of the products that we sell, some of the cloud-based products. And assigning value to potential is very difficult. And new cloud tech, specifically telemetry systems, can benefit a business in many, many, many different areas. So for that reason, it's very important to assign cross-functional teams who can own the adoption of new technology. Typically, you might just assign your procurement team or your engineering team to go away and source new tech, but definitely these things are quite wide-reaching. So a group of people that basically understand the significance of the potential that's offered by these new cloud-based solutions that are coming along. And my final piece of advice would be, when you're looking to adopt new tech, is to partner well with organisations that you can trust, people that you're happy working with, happy to have an ongoing relationship with and collaborate with. And obviously that's what we've done with yourselves with Infor and Infor Logic. And it's a solution that's helped us meet our obligations and deliver our projects on time. So it's the best advice I can give other people.
Great. Excellent. Actually, I want to say, those are excellent points by, all of you panelists. I want to thank the three of you, for the knowledge that you've shared with us. I appreciate all of the insights that you've provided today to really everyone that's attending the webinar. For those of you that are listening today, if you want to learn more about, Infor solutions and what Infor can help with, you can visit, our website, infor.com. For those of you that want to learn more about Vantage Power, you can visit their website as well. It's vantage-power.com. You can also take a look at some of the materials that are attached to this session. I think we included both a video as well as a brochure to give you more details about Vantage Power. And lastly, if you're looking for a local partner out of the Europe region and specifically out of the United Kingdom, you can learn more about, Paula and the folks at InforLogic at inforlogic.com. So thanks again to our panelists today. And I want to thank you, all of our listeners, for attending. And I hope you all have a very good day. Thank you very much.